such as that the Israelites suffered in Egypt. In the Egyptian pyramidical society overseen by the god Pharaoh, with a giant administration and giant cities built to honor the dead, giant useless public works projects such as pyramids marking the horizon, you had an impersonal vertical structure in society. Christianity, in contrast, as Shannon Greer will tell you, brings about a different theory and a different scheme. It is a horizontal society. There are in society many relationships left to right. You have fewer up and down relationships, and you have more left to right. It is a more market-oriented culture and market-oriented society. People are not left behind. People are not buried in the machinery. They're not buried in the inert rubble, if you will, of the building structures, such as we have today public schools, where we have news of the resignation of the superintendent, Dr. Rick Smith. Shannon Greer, who is a minister and a coffee lover, who runs a coffee bar downtown, is in this very theme. He has in his idea of his business the idea of satisfying customers with the best coffee, but also a relational way with his customers, and a relational way, a relationship theory with the people who, as some of them are wont to do, come to the worship services and the Bible studies and the get-togethers at his fellowship, his church, River Church, in the very next room. Well, Shannon, tell us about your idea at your Cadence Coffee Company, of which you're the owner, about Pay It Forward. What is the Pay It Forward theory, and how does Pay It Forward sort of reflect your ideas of the world, and perhaps this horizontal relationship that tends to be the highlight and the great mark of a free society?
Well, David, we one of the important things that we feel like that Cadence is about is building community, and we feel like that we're all part of the same family. We are a community, and so we encourage our customers to not just think of themselves, but to also think of other people, and to think of the people that are coming in. So we have this concept that we didn't invent. We saw it out of a cafe or a pizza restaurant in up north, where customers can come in and they can buy a piece of pizza for another customer, and they put it on a little note, on a Post-it note, and let them know that it's been paid forward. And so we started that about a year ago, and we've probably since in the last year, I think the last look, we've probably handed out close to 300 cups of paid forward coffee. And the really cool thing is, it's not just for, you would think that it's someone that might be homeless or poor or whatever, but the really cool thing is to have a customer come in who says, "Oh man, I forgot my wallet today, and I can't get my coffee." So we point to the wall and say, "Well, someone already paid for your cup," and it just builds that concept of community, builds relationship, and it's just it just adds to our environment.
There's a feeling of goodwill then.
Absolutely.
So let's say the lawyer who was in there yesterday with his white shirt and his bow tie, and who sat thumbing his smart device. Let's say he'd come in without his billfold, and he's oh drats, I forgot my billfold, and he goes to that wall and he grabs a sticky note, and so in effect he's redeeming it, right? He's redeeming a cup of coffee with a promise to pay, which is an actual payment of some other customer, right? But the same for the homeless man who sits in the same chair every day, looking out the great window there to the sidewalk and the sunlit buildings on the other side of the street. He also, if he is in distress, can have someone else pay, and he can redeem the yellow sticky note.
Absolutely.
And trade it in.
My friend Billy, he came in yesterday. He had money, so he bought breakfast. He bought breakfast twice. He was hungry, so he came up and he bought breakfast. But 2 weeks ago, he'd had more month than he had money. So he said, "Can you help me up with a cup of coffee?" We pulled a note off the wall that another customer had written a note. Anything from paid in full, or a promise from Scripture, or just a well wish, and we slap it on his cup and hand it over to him and say, "Man, it's already paid for, so go enjoy it." So.
Is there some expectation, Shannon Greer of River Church and Cadence Coffee Company, is there some expectation that even poor people should help other people?
Absolutely, and that's been a really cool thing that we've seen too. Is that it's not just your philanthropist, your do-gooder that comes in to pay it forward. We've had folks who've come in, who are in the homeless community or in the urban poor community, and they say, you know what, I've got a couple of extra bucks. Let me give it to you. It's $2 for a cup of coffee. Let me pay it forward. And it's just a really cool environment to see that it's not the haves giving to the have-nots. It's just us as community sharing with one another.
Well, Shannon, is there some basis for what you're saying, or is this just sort of warm, fuzzy, humanitarianism, feel-goodism? What is the basis of what you're discussing here?
This is for us. I'm a pastor and a barista. My friends, I've told my friends, you can call me that. I'm a pastorista, and so it's a combination of everything that we do. It stems out of the teachings of Jesus. His call upon our life is to be the kind of people that look outside of ourselves and give back, give into one another's lives. And it's not so much a handout that we're looking for, but more of a hand up to say, hey, you're not walking through life alone. We are community, and so what we do, everything stems out of the gospel, really, and what Jesus has called us to do and emulate his life.
So is it fair to say that even people who don't believe in Jesus are under kind of an obligation from God to do the things that he requires?
I think so. I mean, we're we're not alone. You know, we need one another. We thrive off of community. You can live isolated, but I question whether that's living at all. If you're living in an isolated bubble, and there's really no fullness of life that comes without being connected with one another and contributing into the larger part of community.
Well, it seems like one strength of the Cadence Coffee Company idea, Shannon Greer, is that you give the people who come as patrons, people who volunteer there, people who work there, for example, Lynn Squire and Cody Pope, who work, one of them is a volunteer, they are available to listen. And I think Christians often in our day and in our country, they are very much bent on saying certain things and sort of delivering a message. And I think perhaps what you're creating is a context in which they can say, well, I know that I'm supposed to read the 4 spiritual laws and try to convert the person sitting at the next table. We both have some time on our hands. We're in a chatty mood. I know I'm supposed to do that, but it sounds like what you're really proposing is more of an inquiry. People who are Christians can inquire about other people and just listen and hear and sort of absorb the other person's narrative and hear about his problems. And that way, it's much more. Well, it's really more relational, and I think in the end you become someone who can perhaps offer a good word if you're a Christian and you have a good word to offer to some lost soul who's poor in spirit and poor in funds.
Absolutely. You know, the thing that I look at is that what did Jesus do? What model did he put in front of us? And Jesus was never the person who was just hey, you come to me and let me. He was interactive. He was engaging. You and I were talking earlier about the woman at the well, and I love that picture of Jesus being thirsty himself. She was almost the bartender, if I can say that, and he was coming thirsty, but he was actually trying to get her story. He was engaging her, and in that you see this model being set that is one of let's hear the story of the person sitting across from us, and that's really what we try to do at Cadence.
Well, we were both mentioning a book called When Helping Hurts by Brian Fickard and Steve Corbett. It is published by the Chalmers Center at Covenant College up on Lookout Mountain. And you've heard this book. And in fact, you were scrambling last night to find your copy of it. And I was commenting to you, Shannon Greer, it's good to be a man who has enough books so that occasionally you lose one. That's a good sign that you have a literary pursuit. Well, but I mentioned this book because in the Sunday editions of the Chattanooga Times and Free Press, this first day of the week, there was a long story about this book and the authors behind it, and they propose in caring for the poor and encouraging economic development among very poor people what they call asset-based community development as opposed to need-based community development. Well, we're not going to tell the listener the details right now what they're saying, but what do you suppose, Shannon, is entailed in that, in the difference between those two concepts? The current church apparently is very it has a need-based community development theory, which doesn't seem to be working well.
I think we have a tendency to get some sort of satisfaction if we can just, throw $1 or 100 or 1,000 at a project, and wow, we feel better. If we've done that and we've made a contribution. I don't know that that's as effective as we might think that it is. And what we believe is that there comes a point in which you have to be willing to get your hands dirty. You have to kind of get your feet in the mud where the person's sitting and say, what's your story, and what is your real need, and how can we help you come out of that place. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to find out where, what their needs are, and how can we come in along beside of them and tap into the skills, the resources that they have, and help lift them up out of that place. One of the things that we hope to do at Cadence is to become a place increasingly more and more where we're able to bring people in who are trying to get back up on their feet and be able to help them build basic job skills so that they're actually able to go out into the working world and step in ultimately into a career, but developing a pathway of success for them.
Well, a good journalist always asks basic questions. Shannon Greer: who, what, when, where, and why. And my listener is saying, David, what's the where in this Cadence River Coffee? Where exactly are you?
We are on 7th Street, number 11 East 7th Street. We're directly around the corner from the Hamilton County Courthouse. We sit between Cherry and Market Street. We have great parking out front and a street side parking. So it's and you can, anywhere around there you can park and come in. But we're right in the heart of downtown.
And so you have people who are somewhat aimless, perhaps somewhat not rooted in a particular dwelling, who don't pay rent and who wander in, having heard, of course, about Cadence. And some of them hear the gospel promises at River Church in the next room. Well, it seems to me what you're really addressing, Shannon Greer, is a problem that my listener and I often think about, and that's the scale problem. And with the scale problem, you can see in, let's say, in welfare, state welfare or federal welfare, you have a gigantic program which is totally impersonal. It's bureaucratic. You have the recipients are beneficiaries, they're called, or recipients, or clients. You have that sense of dependency created in the very words. And the scale of the service, the money, the dole is so great that no thanks is expected. You have it by right. In fact, you have it by procedural statutory right to benefits. And so what happens, I think, in that relationship is a kind of corruption of the welfare that's ostensibly intended, right? The voters want to have welfare. They have Congress pass bills to allow that to happen. And yet the relationship is impersonal and the scale is wrong. So your idea of welfare is what? How do you deal with the scale problem, and how do you understand the scale problem that I'm describing?
If I'm understanding you correctly, I think the element that's missing is a very basically personal interaction. We don't want to get dirty with someone else's problems. We don't want to have to get caught up in their drama, the muck and the mire of it. But you can't really address the real issue if you don't know their story. So we've created these institutions, these programs, these very impersonal vehicles by which we're trying to meet people's needs, and the end result on both sides is ineffective. There's no real coming out of that need and that poverty, really, and then there's no real answering a need in that situation, because you haven't truly engaged the person. You've only just kind of said, here's a Band-Aid, let's slap it on it, and now let me go feel better about myself.
Yeah, here's $20 and I've done my bit. Well, the scale problem is that I think as Fickert and Corbett in their book When Helping Hurts, How to Alleviate Poverty Without Hurting the Poor and Yourself, they say that you're using the asset of the poor person. He has assets. Now these may be very small, and here the scale comes in. If you have very small assets, you're very poor, you have very limited skills, you have no resume, limited job experience, and so on, and you're not very reliable. You still have other assets. So what are those assets? And they may seem very small. And so what they're suggesting is that church people, that Christian people, that Christians interested in helping the gang problem by knowing gang members and dealing with them regularly, you deal on the scale of the person who has the need, or who has some prospect for reformation, some prospect for improving himself and becoming a real benefit to society. So you're taking that, as you said, you're taking that asset that person has. Maybe it's some virtue, maybe it's something he knows, or he has a certain gift or knowledge or willingness to show up on time. I mean, to show up on time is important.
Absolutely.
That is an important asset.
Right.
And being able to show up on the days that you're expected to, like those who might come to work for you, right?
Friday behind the bar as it is Sunday morning behind the pulpit.
So your living is from the tithe and godly giving among
Yes.
church people, visitors, and members of River Church.
Yes.
Well, Well, I do thank you for joining us, Shannon Greer. Thanks so
for
much.
having me.
And how can my listener find out more about you online?
CadenceCoffeeCo.com.
CadenceCoffeeCo.com.
That's right. Or Facebook. We're on Facebook. Like us on Facebook, and you can get more information about us that way.
And Cadence is having the rhythm, having the right rhythm, the right scale, the right movement here in Chattanooga. This is David Toulis, and we've been talking with Shannon Greer at Cadence Coffee Company on 11 East 7th Street, right near the county courthouse. Lawyers, drifters, homeless people, and well-intentioned folks like you come in for terrific coffee. I had a great cup yesterday, and I got a free refill. Free refills at Cadence. This is David Toulis.
Thanks.